Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about what I believe is the most sensitive zodiac sign. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the sun, moon, and ascendant. Anyway, first off, start out with Aries. Well, Aries, of course, could be very hot-tempered. They're very easily provoked. They're obviously most of us know that they're not overly vengeful and vindictive or don't hold a grudge. They can get angry pretty quick, but they're really not. They're not ones to hold grudges or really ruminate or lament over someone's negative remark or derogatory remark for too prolonged a period. So I don't see Aries as the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. Now going to Taurus. Now, Taurus can have a very impassive front, especially if Taurus is rising. They could be very calm and placid. They often have a stronger ability to endure insults and derogatory remarks from others than most other zodiac signs, or maybe all the other zodiac signs on average, I believe. They are obviously not easily provoked, but can be infuriated and really angry as a bull. If you really get down, if they reach their point of endurance, but they're a strong ability to take negativity and criticism much more than, say, like another sign. I'll talk about that later. But they're not. I would not say they're the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. Now, the zodiac sign Cancer can often fall on the third house cusp, though, for Taurus in a solar or natal chart. So they have a little sensitivity, and sometimes they may deal with certain things somewhat irrationally. But it's hard for me to say that they're the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. Now, going to Gemini. Well, Gemini, I mean, despite being very mercurial, changeable, and really very lighthearted, they could be a little bit more sensitive than a lot of people may believe. They are a sign that could be actually very high strung, very excitable. That's how their temperament can be. They are ones, though, where because the emotional energy can be somewhat on the surface. Emotions could be superficial. I don't think Gemini is not a sign that is going to be about holding malice or animosity toward people for any prolonged period. I think they're on to bigger and better things. They could get their feelings hurt a little bit more than you might anticipate, given that in a solar natal chart, the zodiac sign Cancer sometimes will fall on the third house cusp. So they could be a little bit sensitive in their communications and what people say to them, even though they may not show it. But because Gemini is so mental motivated, their temperament is so mental motivated, very cerebral, they're on to the next thing. If somebody says something that might hurt them, it generally won't be that. The feeling that they feel from that remark or what have you may not be overly sustained, because they move very quickly, and their emotions can as well. And perhaps especially if somebody has their moon in Gemini like I do. So anyway, next sign I talk about is the zodiac sign Cancer. Well, Cancer certainly can qualify as the most sensitive of the zodiac signs, because Cancer can be very strongly sensitive and tuned to their environment, which could play a role as somewhat attributed to why they could be so temperamental and fickle and changeable, and they have very strong mood swings. And some of this can be attributed to their sensitivity to their environment and may make them very well one of the more sensitive zodiac signs. The zodiac sign Cancer can be very sensitive to criticism and ridicule, whether they show it or not. Sometimes they'll go into that proverbial shell to show and kind of go in their own little refuge or sanctuary to escape that hurt, or when they're hurt, that's what they may do. But the thing about it is they are certainly a prime candidate, a viable candidate for being the most sensitive zodiac sign, and I'll reveal at the end of the video whether I think they actually are or not. Now, the zodiac sign Leo. Well, Leo is not, it'd be hard pressed for me to say that Leo would be the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. Leo's emotions can be very ferocious. They are ones, their pride may curtail, or I should say maybe prevent them to some degree from becoming oversensitive over some issue. They may be too proud to allow themselves to do it, but at times if they become sensitive over something, they may kind of lick those wounds, figuratively speaking, in solitude and seclusion, given that the zodiac sign Cancer often falls on the 12th house cusp in a solar or natal chart for Leo. So those are, I mean, but Leo is one where they're not ones to really lament over things for that long, or to allow someone to really hurt them that deeply, because Leo is very proud, very dignified, and they will really just look at the person a lot of times as someone very insignificant when something like this happens, or they might just forget about the person completely, but not allow themselves to become dominated by that moment, or negative thoughts connected with that remark that may have been stated. To Leo, allow it to hurt them too much, because I think a lot of it does have to do with their pride, and they will just go off on another tack or do something different, and not try not to dwell on something like that too long. So it's hard for me to say that Leo would be the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. Now going to Virgo. Well, Virgo, like Gemini, can be very mental motivated temperament. Virgo could be very analytical, and they're really very cerebral. They're not ones to allow themselves to get upset by too easily by others. I had a friend of mine that had a Scorpio moon and a Virgo ascendant, and someone said to him one time, as an Aries sun, imagine that, Mr. Outspoken, he said to this friend, he said that something like, don't you ever get upset or anything? Well, the thing is, of course, Scorpio moon can control their emotions very well, and then the Virgo ascendant. Virgo is not one, again, there's so much about their analysis, and they will, they really are, I mean, for me to think Virgo would be the most sensitive, it'd be very hard pressed to really think that, because they're so busy on doing something, trying to solve some problem, or trying to analyze something. A lot of times they might just actually be trying to analyze why somebody might have said something hurtful to Virgo, and rather than really become emotionally involved in that moment. So it's really I don't think Virgo would be the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. Now going to Libra. Well, Libra has a very balanced and even temperament. They're not ones to really let too many extraneous things, if you will, really get them down. They will stay pretty consistent. And for Libra, I think what it is Libra doesn't really become that overly sensitive, because, and especially if it's like a relationship situation, because with Libra, I think they know, given that they're so relationship oriented and often dominated by them, that they could lose, like, what is it, like the atom or electron theory, when one goes out, one comes back in. I think that could be Libra's philosophy. And if somebody does Libra wrong, they may not really react very strongly, but they may just simply take them to court and have the legal system handle it, because Libra is very balanced, and their emotions, I think, can be very balanced. And I think because of that, they don't allow themselves to become overly sensitive over issues, and being an air sign, of course, does play a role in that. So I would say Libra is not the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. Now going to Scorpio. Well, Scorpio, of course, they could have a very placid and calm front. They are a water sign. They can actually be very intensely and deeply emotional, even have very convoluted emotions. Someone's got a Scorpio moon, maybe especially, but they have a very controlled exterior, especially, I would say, Scorpio ascendant. But when you think about it, I do believe that the planet Pluto, I don't know if they have irrefutable evidence on this or not, but of course, maybe you may know Pluto rules Scorpio. And in Pluto, there's at least a theory at this point that there are, there's some waters underneath that plutonium, that icy surface. And I think it parallels Scorpio's temperament, having a very icy, cool surface, but very turbulent emotions underneath. And I think Scorpio energy and Scorpio can actually be very intensely and deeply emotional and sensitive. In fact, they may be hyper sensitive to things, but they just don't show it, often superficially. But unfortunately for others, what happens is if they take it up to a certain point, it's almost like a dam that finally breaks, and all this emotional energy, powerful emotions, can be unleashed. And Scorpio certainly can qualify as the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. But I'll let you know at the end of the video whether I think it's them or not. Now, going to Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius, to me, it's hard for me to see them being the most sensitive of the zodiac signs, because Sagittarius has that what me worry philosophy. They're often that incorrigible optimist, and even they often take something, a derogatory or derisive remark, and actually try to see something positive, and they might just be like, well, I just take it from the source, or they let it roll off their shoulder or whatever, and they just move on. They're not ones to dwell or lament on negativity from someone or a negative situation dominate their thoughts. They look at it like, well, even if someone leaves me, in many situations, well, there's another person there for me. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always something positive to be derived in a negative situation. And they often, because they're so jocular, so jovial, so happy-go-lucky, they generally won't let negativity from others impact them and ruin their mood, unlike some other signs. So it's hard for me to see that Sagittarius would be the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. Now, going to Capricorn. Well, Capricorn is really the sad, despondent, melancholy sign, but they're also ones that have a lot of discipline and control over their emotions, and I think in reacting in a sensitive manner to situations. So I don't think Capricorn would be the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. They are, though, I mean, they can be somewhat pessimistic, and their emotions are more connected with sadness and feelings of melancholy, feelings of depression. And may not take much for Capricorn to be down on his or herself, but the thing about it is Capricorn is they're so focused and on a lot of times on their career, on their ambitions, that if somebody does something negative or hurtful to them, they'll often just keep plowing ahead and still focus on what they need to do. Capricorn could be very strong-willed. They're not a fixed sign, but they have certain single-mindedness, I believe, and they're not ones to really become emotionally involved in things. They can often be seen as callous or cold and sometimes even undemonstrative. And with that, I think there'd be a correlation to, at times, some insensitivity with the zodiac sign. So I don't really see Capricorn as being the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. Now, going to Aquarius. Now, Aquarius, it'd be hard-pressed for me to say that they would be the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. They could be, I mean, very cool, aloof, and detached. They're ones to often not get involved really strong emotionally with others. They would rather, in many cases, have a friendship in contrast to an actual close connection with others. They are ones where I think a lot of it, I mean, Aquarius, of course, is very freedom and independent oriented, and they just don't really want to have, I mean, when you have a Aquarius is ruled, one of their planetary rulers is Uranus, the higher octave of Mercury. They are often very innovative, ingenious, and they're often so focused on the mental element that they're just trying to they're so embroiled often in new concepts, new ideas. They're so forward moving. They don't have time to become overly sensitive about things, because I think maybe perhaps some of it's attributed to them being very future oriented and forward moving. They just, if they have to stay emotionally connected for a certain period of time, that prevents them from moving forward and from doing things that are associated with their higher, with doing things that are more of on a friendship level with others, or doing things connected with new concepts, innovations, and ideas, and new now, so for me to think that Aquarius would be the most sensitive, I would say no, they're also governed by two cold planets, Saturn and Uranus. So anyway, last but not least, Pisces. Well, interesting. Pisces falls to the end of this video, the last sign of the zodiac. I think they are the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. Some will say Cancer. I would say it could be very well a toss-up between Cancer and Pisces. I understand Scorpio is deeply emotional. They can be, but they're a little bit more. They can control their emotions and their sensitive reactions a little better than Pisces or Cancer. Pisces is the most sensitive, largely, I think, because they have greater sensitivity to higher vibrations, and maybe that plays a role in how sensitive they can be to others. They're very sensitive, not just emotion, but they're sensitive more to the extraneous surroundings. They often will be the ones that will change in varied company. They will be the ones that might replicate others' behavior, while Cancer might be sensitive to others' moods at times and allow that to somewhat affect their mood to some degree. But Pisces is just really about the other people's behavior and often mimicking it, and they're ones that are the most impressionable and sensitive, most, I think, to their surroundings, more so than when Cancer or Scorpio. Pisces too. Again, they are. I mean, water signs are generally would be the ones that are the most sensitive. I believe I believe is connected. There's a correlation of water and sensitivity. And remember again that Pisces, as I've stated in previous videos, the theory is, and I subscribe to and concur with it, that they are the amalgamation of the previous 11 zodiac signs. Because of that, they have a little element of Scorpio and Cancer in them anyway, I believe. And you look at, and then Pisces is known to really be again, their reactions on average, I think, compared to the other zodiac signs, are more with greater sensitivity, greater emotion than Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces is more about the save the world philosophy on average, more so than Cancer or Scorpio. They're more sensitive, I think, to those needs of others, especially those that are less fortunate than themselves, such as the impoverished, the homeless, the oppressed, or the hungry. So they are just the ones that are really more sensitive, just in general. I think they're the most sensitive of the zodiac signs. I think they get hurt the worst, more so than other signs. They seem to be more devastated by negative behavior from others, especially if they had put the certain person on a pedestal for a certain period of time, and then they find out that that person, he or she, wasn't what they projected themselves to be. They're the ones that will, I think, react most emotionally, because due to the fact that they were guilty of self-deception. And I think that is what really hurts Pisces very strongly. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for what I believe is the most sensitive zodiac sign. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.